Welcome back. I am your host, Brian Sales. This is the See Through It podcast, episode number 8. And today we have Sean Haas. Did I say your name right?
Yeah.
Mr. Sean Haas, Mayoral candidate, Republican candidate for South Bend. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm anxious to get this on the road.
All right.
Today, before we start, I want to say thank you for everyone that watched episode that we did on North Liberty and Alex England, his gym. We hit 1,000 views on that. So thank you. I appreciate that. We're picking up momentum. So keep supporting, keep liking, keep sharing, keep commenting, keep supporting the movement. So it's greatly appreciated. I forever appreciate it. Even though it's 1,000, it means a lot to me. It means a lot. So with that being said, today we're here with Sean Haas, and he's running for mayor in South Bend. The Democrats have had hold on South Bend for a very long time. I read in the paper, I seen the article that, if you have not seen the article that they did on Mr. Sean Haas, you should definitely read that. It's in the South Bend Tribune. It's a good piece. But make sure you watch this and then go read it, because we're gonna clear some things that was a little eye-raising, but it's a great article. And the Republicans haven't had a chance of being in control of the city since 1974, was
71.
it? 71.
71 when Lloyd Allen left office. Or 72, actually. So they had the election in 71 and he left.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Democrats have been running South Bend, and I moved up here in 99, and it was a different city. And as I went through high school, you can see I started noticing the decline. So we're here today to talk about what can he do for the city of South Bend. Will he bring changes and many other things that we'll be addressing. If you can see, that's what's on my board. We got a couple. I should probably raise my board, but gentrification, policing, and again, can he unite the city? Because the city is divided. Whether it's race, whether it's how police should be treating its citizens, the city is divided, and we need someone to unify the city. We'll start there. How would you go about doing that?
Well, I think it's tough. For me, I believe that foundationally we need to make sure that we have good schools and safe streets, and I think that's something that everybody can agree on, whether you're Democrat or Republican. And so the focus of my campaign, at least the focus of my message, has been that I want to make sure that we can reestablish trust between the community and the police, but also I want to do everything that the city government can possibly do to support the schools. I believe that trade skills are one of the most important aspects of that approach. I think they provide, whether you're talking union jobs or private contractors, trade skills are in high demand. And I think focusing on my energy on those aspects, whether it's within the schools, reaching into the younger kids, or even talking about, reaching into the adult community and start trying to recruit more for those trade skills, electricians, plumbers, carpenters. We need them, not just here in South Bend. We need them nationwide. And so I think if we can focus our energy as far as the city government in pushing those, that's going to have an economic impact, not just on wages, because there is a disparity between minority wages and other groups, but also it's going to have an impact on crime. Poverty is one of the biggest motivating factors when you look at reasons to commit illegal acts. So I think if we can give people security, a good wage, that's going to help alleviate some of the crime that we've seen spiking in the last few years.
Okay. Now, do you believe that would be that would unify the city, and if everyone is working? Because people feel like there are jobs out there. If you go on WNDU and if they post something about a job, you can see that people be like, "There's jobs out there, you just not working," or I've applied for multiple jobs. I've applied for multiple jobs, but I couldn't even get it. get an interview. How would that unify the city? Like,
so I mean, it's like, and it's not just that you know you're not going to go out and get a trade skill job. You know, it takes some education, it takes some training, but there's a lot of programs out there that offer that education and training. I think uniting behind those basic foundational elements for society,
I see.
getting behind education, and I mean, and not everybody's suited to go to college. I think I've made that clear in the past before, but education is still important, whether you're talking about a 4-year college, a trade school, a 2-year trade school, or technical school. I feel like if we can start unifying the community behind that education and showing that there's value there, because there is a lot of good paying jobs out there. I mean, not everybody's gonna strike it rich and be
right.
Making millions of dollars. There's a lot of good paying jobs where you can earn a middle class wage and have a very comfortable lifestyle if you're willing to put in the work.
Right.
And for me, that's what I want to try and sell to this community, in the sense that we can get behind this. We can improve the city economically. We can improve the safety if we can get behind this educational focus. And I think the trade schools are the quickest avenue to make sure we don't go into people aren't going into crushing college debt or coming out of school with bills that they can't afford to pay based on the jobs that they're getting. Trade skills, you're going to have a job and they're going to pay you while you're working, and you come out debt free. It's just, I feel like there's a lot of advantages there besides just the economic security.
Right. No, I see what you're saying now. So if everyone should have the like mind of feeling that education or getting behind the education part, because we do have a situation where the corporation is not doing too well on the education front. So if the whole community to get behind that whole idea, that would definitely, I can see that unity.
It's a cultural shift. I mean, we're really asking people to look inward and kind of look, well, what's best for the future generations. I'd love to be able to take people young adults that have had trouble in their life and set them on a path to economic security and get them on the right path. But I think we have to start. We have to get in there with these younger generations. I'm talking around like 5th grade, 6th grade. Start explaining the importance of these jobs. I mean, it's not just that we need them here in South Bend. I mean, infrastructure is crumbling all over the country, right. And so if we can make South Bend a place where employers look at it like, man, this city is cranking out workers, and they're cranking out skilled workers that can do these jobs. I mean, South Bend could be a factory for that kind of work, in the sense that we kind of help fuel the rebuilding of America.
I like that. Pushing education. So basically, no school pipeline to jails. So that's been the thing.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
been the thing. No school pipeline to jails. We're building a pipeline to a career and to jobs. School to jobs.
Yep.
That's how it was. Somewhere there was a change, and the schools were sending. Well, not the schools were sending kids to jail, but it was the kids weren't getting what they needed to get, and were transitioning right into a criminal path. So
I think this idea that, and this probably started around even like the time that I was graduating and you were starting high school, that high school diploma just isn't what it used to be. You got to get your college degree. And while college, is good for some people, there was a lot of people who couldn't necessarily make it academically, or they
right.
had stuff happen in their lives that prevented them, whether they had children or had some kind of tragedy that happened in their personal life. And so a lot of people kind of got left behind, in the sense that they weren't going to college, and then they were kind of, well, what else is out there for me? And I feel like communicating that there are options. I mean, not just trade skills. I mean, I think the military is a great option.
The military.
There's 150 different jobs where you can come out. You do your 2, 3, 4 years, however many you sign up for. You can come out and have a job waiting for you, because not only are you already trained, but you've got characters, you got dispositions and qualities I think that employers are looking for. So I think communicating to these young people that it's okay if you don't go to college. There's other options out there for you if you're still willing to put in the work.
Yeah. And as you said, the military I highly recommend military. If you don't feel like going to college, if you don't feel like education is something you want to deal with for the next 2 to 8 years or whatever it is, military is a great option career wise, and it's good for building character, the structure, respect. It's a great option. So shout out to all my Cab Scouts, 19 Deltas, the Army, the Navy. Mr. John Haas was in the Army.
I was a mechanic in the Army. I was trained as a generator mechanic, but didn't really work on generators all that much unless you were out in the field. So I got schooled in Humvees and 5 tons and Hemmets, and
that's how it goes sometimes. You go in for one job and you might do a million other jobs. So you might go in for one job and you're gonna learn other things while
yeah.
So that's a good thing too. So as we transition, we're gonna talk about the policing in South Bend. In the article that I read this morning, again, that was a good article, the South Bend Tribune. There was a section, nice little lengthy section, where the writer or the reporter was trying to depict that you were, how would I want to put this? You was walking a straight line, there's no wavering, there's no, that you were on the side of the police, whether right or wrong. And again, people, I've had an episode before. I'm not against the police, but I'm for right. If it's right, then it's right. If it's wrong, then it's wrong. It needs to be called out. The writer depicted that either way, you were going to be supporting the police. And how do you feel about that piece?
Well, I mean, from the mayor's perspective, you've got to back the police, all right? But just like any other citizen, whether you're a police officer or a teacher or anybody else, you have certain rights that are afforded to you by our Constitution. You get due process. You get the presumption of innocence. And so for the mayor's office, at least in supporting the police, I think you have to back the police because we trust them to make those decisions. We put a lot of responsibility in their hands. But on the flip side of it, if there is an investigation, if there is misconduct that's found, then like you said, if you're wrong, you're wrong, and it needs to be called out. And I think accountability, and this is something that I've spoken with several officers about, that when someone commits an act that they weren't supposed to do, that they need to have their feet held to the fire like everyone else. And I'm not saying that I would blindly support the police no matter what, but I think until the investigation plays out, you have to have their back. I mean, you can be as objective as possible. You say, look, we trust these guys. We put a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, and we, as the mayor, these are my guys, so I'm going to support them. Once the investigation plays out, if they're cleared of any wrongdoing, you say, yes, this is why we trust them, this is why we believe in them. And then if there's misconduct, if there's something that they did that was wrong, then they need to be held accountable in the right way, whether it's losing their job, whatever it is. I mean, you always have to look at what the misconduct was, and I think that determines, what level of consequences you get. But you have to support them. I mean, if the police feel like they're not being supported by their boss, they're not going to be able to do their job, or they're going to feel like, I could go out there and be more proactive and do something, where I, following my gut, following my instinct, or I could just be reactive and only kind of respond when things go bad. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think most cops want to do what's right. There's bad actors in every profession, no matter what, no matter where you go. But we shouldn't drag the entire profession through the mud for the bad actions of a few. I mean, I'm a history teacher. I know that historically, especially through the civil rights movement, there were some bad officers, and even going back to the O.J. Simpson trial, and even like before that, there's bad actors within the police departments. I mean, just like in any profession. But you can't, I think, as a mayor, if your job, and I think one of the pillars of government is to provide safety for the public, if you undermine the people underneath you, and you know this, I think, in the military as well. If you don't support your guys, they're not going to support you. They're not going to do their job the way that they need to get it done.
Right. So I feel like the issue people have with Pete, and again, I don't do the bashing. We're not going to be bashing or talking bad about other people, but I feel like people are upset with Pete or feel indifferent about the situation because he was supporting the police and they felt like he shouldn't have. And then as his campaign got further along, he flipped the switch and was like, I condemn them. I felt like that was all wrong. With him being in the military, I felt like he handled that horribly. I don't understand how he managed to do that. That was a situation where he fired a police chief, and there was an ongoing investigation, and people remember that. And then you have this, and he didn't do the same thing. So he's always been inconsistent in what he's doing. So I think that bothers a lot of people, the inconsistencies. The one day we're doing this and the next day we're doing that. How would you go about maintaining consistency? So if you say this is what we're doing now and you want to be transparent, but you have to maintain consistency, how would you do that?
I mean, you stand by your principles, you stand by your word. I mean, the people that are working for you, you have to support them. Like you said, I think with his campaign, I think what he was trying to do nationally might have clouded his judgment on what he did locally. And while he came out initially and might have supported the police, he didn't do that after a few days. I think there was pressure enough from other entities that made him change his mind. But you have to be consistent. I mean, one set of rules, one set of standards, that's what you have to abide by. And I mean, I think we try and live our lives by that. I mean, you always have to take into account like special circumstances and special situations, but you have to kind of have at your core set of standards and principles that you're always gonna follow. And I think for me, I feel like the Constitution is a really good place to start. I mean, you've got certain rights that are afforded to you, and those rights are not, they are black and white. There's no gray area in between. And so you have to be able to stand behind that. And I think once investigation, once processes happen, then you can adjust your stance based on those circumstances. But you have to stand behind those common core principles that you have in order to do the job correctly.
What type of policing would you want? I remember I think it was law class, we went over a couple different types of policing. And I believe, my opinion, I think the best policing is community policing, where I believe when I was younger, I wasn't afraid of the cops. The cops were always riding through the neighborhood. They were in the schools. They stopped and talked to us. I felt like that was community policing. I don't know what style of policing we have right now, or what they're trying to go towards. What would you want to have for the...
I mean, I like the idea of community policing just because I want people to trust the police. You know, I want them to understand that they're here not as, some boogeyman that's going to get them, in trouble, but that they're here to enforce laws that keep everybody safe. And I'd love to see police get more active in the community. I know that they are very active in the community right now, but I think we need to build that trust in a way that kind of makes them be seen not necessarily as officers all the time in uniform, but as just regular people, whether it's mentoring, whether it's tutoring, getting them out more in the community in a role where they're not in that official capacity, to build trust with people, to say, look, they're not just some, somebody out there that's enforcing the law and trying to catch people doing the wrong thing, that they're members of the community. I'd like to see more police officers living in South Bend in the community that they police. I couldn't tell you exactly what happened. I mean, I know that right now we have a low percentage of officers that live in South Bend and actually are on the force. I don't know if I feel like everybody operates on incentives, and I think at one time there might have been a bonus for officers if they were residents within the city that they got, and I think that's something that's gone. Like it's weird. Like I think when people get in, or when people look at people who do community service, whether it's teaching, policing, fire department, they kind of have this idea that they're not necessarily motivated by incentives like everybody else. Like everybody wants to make more money. Everybody wants to have financial security. And so I feel like bringing some of those incentives to the table might help not only, bring officers back into South Bend, but also could help diversify it as well. And that's one of the things that has been, at least people have been critical of this current administration, is that diversification in the police force has gone down.
It feels like, so I applied for the police department for South Bend maybe 4 times. No, let's say that like 3 times, and all 3 times I got to the selection. I got to to the board and talked to them. They asked me a bunch of questions, and then they grade your answers, and then they let you know if you pass or not. And then it goes up for if you get selected. So I got to that part 3 times, and all 3 times was a no, but they couldn't tell you why, because Indiana's a free to work state or whatever.
Right to work
state. And there was no real reason. She just told me, keep going. But I felt like I've heard so many times that it was political. Who you know, who knows you, is your face familiar? Like they're not just gonna allow anyone to be in the police department. And I was coming off from being in the military, and still couldn't get in. I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't get in, and I know other people that that was trying to get in and didn't get in. And I've seen multiple graduations, and I think only a handful of times I've only seen maybe a black person every other time, maybe.
I mean, it could be some of the regulations that are in there. They could be kind of archaic in the sense that, they might. Now, I can't speak to your personal situation, but I mean, things like tattoos I know are like a bad, a kind of a no-no.
Yeah.
And that they would, would you cover those up and that kind of stuff. But I mean, that's one thing I'd like to take a look at when I get in is what are the kind of the qualifications and the criteria? Because I know we don't want to lower standards. Right. We want to make sure we're getting good people in there.
Right.
But if there are things like if it's tattoos, if it's your haircut, if it's something that's kind of superficial and not necessarily getting at the content of the person, that it's just kind of more of maybe a characteristic that doesn't necessarily define somebody, that's something I'd really have to look at, because I know, like you said, I feel like the military is an excellent place to get diversity, not just of racial background, but diversity of experience. I feel like I learned so much when I was in basic training, AIT, and then all the way through my military career, because I was exposed to people from every corner of the United States, and I learned a ton just through talking with people about their experiences. And I think I think I'd love to get more people from the military in here, either or looking at places like Detroit, Chicago, Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, who have more experience with a diverse population, getting them to come to South Bend too and bring that with them. We need to do something, because the numbers just are atrocious as far as what's happened over the last 10 or 8 years, I guess, since Pete's been in there. I think we were somewhere around 28% black officers, and it's dropped significantly since he's been mayor. So I'm not sure what. I'm not going to say it's his fault,
right? And
I don't blame him for it at all. But there's got to be something in the policies and procedures about how we choose candidates that has to be addressed, because it's. I feel like someone like yourself with a military background, I mean, I would check that as a very, positive
Right.
in as far as if we were looking at each candidate. So, because like I said, I believe in the character and the discipline that they build. And I think if you get into the military, you do have a desire to serve the community. You want to do something, good for the people.
Right.
And so I don't care if you were in the military police when you were in, if you were a mechanic, if you were a medic. I think just that quality and character that you develop there is something that would be a positive aspect bringing it to the force.
Yeah, absolutely. The military been put into different situations, learning how to de-escalate a situation, learning how to deal with just different people outside of like even when we went out to France, when we was in France, they were throwing rocks and bricks. They was protesting. They hate Americans over there. They when we was walking on, they hated us, and we had to restrain from going after them or picking up the rocks or whatever and throwing it back at them. I don't know many police officers. I'm not gonna say that. People have a hard time refraining from doing retaliating.
Mm-hmm.
They a lot of the shootings, they say the police officers were scared or they panicked. Without the military training that we see, we didn't panic. We don't panic. We know how to handle ourselves. So it blew my mind when I couldn't get in those 3 times. So that definitely that needs to be looked over. I feel like the diversity is very little in a city that's very high. The population is very, very high with minorities. Right?
Yeah, but South Bend's a diverse city. Definitely diverse.
So it just blows my mind. So definitely that needs to be looked into. As we move forward, on top of that, I saw on your website, it said the violent crimes. I don't know where the source came from, but it said violent crimes for every 1,012. There's 1,000 violent crimes here in South Bend for every 100,000 residents.
I'd have to look at that statistic, but I know that we are on par with we have Indianapolis, I think, and I think the statistics you're referring to is we're, as far as population, we're about 7 times smaller than Indianapolis,
right.
But we have more violent crimes per 1,000 people than Indianapolis does, and that, I mean, volume wise, that's kind of shaking as far as just statistics. And you look at that, well, wow. I mean, is South Bend really that violent? I mean, I don't think it's a bad city. It's just what are the factors that are motivating people to do this? And I mean, it's not like we have a out of control murder rate or people. But we have a lot of people getting shot. We have a lot of people being robbed and burglaries and that kind of stuff. And so, what are the factors that are motivating people to do that? And I mean, like I said earlier, I think if we can get people educated, get them in jobs that have security, not I mean, I believe in the unions. I think unions are an excellent way for people to not only get good financial benefits. I mean, you're talking health benefits, retirement. It also, in collective bargaining, it protects against wage discrimination based on race as well, because you're dealing with an entire group. You're not dealing one-on-one. And so there's kind of been this disconnect between Republicans and unions over the years politically. And I mean, I understand why people might not, like the unions if they donate to one ideology or one political party more than another. But I look at it as kind of a cost benefit. I think I don't care. I feel like the benefits of being in a union far outweigh any costs that I might, reap politically. And I mean, I'm not a political person. I mean, I vote all over the place, as far as my voting history. Even though I'm a Republican, a registered Republican now, this primary was the first primary where I ever registered as a Republican. And it's because for me, I drew the line where I was pro-life, and that's why I fell on this side of the aisle. But I'm very much in the center. I think most people, whether you had me in school and talked to me, or me personally, nothing's really off the table. I think I'm willing to have a dialogue or a discussion about any issue.
Yeah.
So it's something that I try and pass on and try and portray myself as somebody kind of in the center. But yeah.
Yeah, that's what I try to. I don't want to. Like I told you, I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I want to be in the middle and hear what both sides are trying to sell me. I want to know, but for the most part, you get a lot of the bashing, and you don't really get to decide on who you want to pick for. So I try to just stay dead center and just see what's being offered instead of just being dedicated to this side and knowing that this side is not offering anything. And I see what they're offering over there, but I'm dedicated to this. So how do you speak to those people who are just lifers, Democrat or lifer Republican? How do you speak to those people about just recognizing that there needs to be a change?
I think there's core issues that everybody can agree upon, whether you're far left or far right. There's basic foundational parts of our society that everyone feels that we need to have safe streets. We need to have good schools and a good education system. Now, we might differ on how to get to that goal politically, but I think that's the beauty of our system. I feel like compromise is one of the things that makes us a great country, is that we can differ ideologically, but we can still agree on some basic principles and finding a path to get there. That's what I want to do. I'm not here to be a savior. I'm not here to save South Bend. I just feel like we've had one kind of perspective for the last 50 years.
Right.
And whether you are Democrat or Republican, I mean, I've lived in South Bend my whole life except for the 4 years I was gone when I was in the military, and I feel that the path that we've been on hasn't addressed those central elements. I just feel like there needs to be more equity, there needs to be more dialogue from both sides, and it shouldn't just be dominated by one political party. I'd like to see some more discussion, some more compromise, and kind of move forward from there.
Okay, I like that. So as we transition, we're going to talk about gentrification. When I was younger, Notre Dame took over the east side of South Bend. There's a lot of little mom and pop shops, and a lot of my friends that went to high school at Adams, they lived over there. And then all of a sudden, we was hearing talks about Notre Dame wanted to buy the property, buy all that up, and boom, they bought it all up, got everybody out of there, and now the value's like super high. Those same people can't move back into that area. I was talking to my mom about it, and she was like, it's to improve the value, improve the property, to make it look good. And I get that. I understand that. But how do you get the people that were in that area to come back? Like, how can those people come back and enjoy where they grew up their whole lives? We see it on the west side. There was a little area that was done, I call it Little Mexico, but that little section on Western that was done and revitalized, and then you go further down Western, it looks horrible. The northwest side, the north side, nothing's been done. The south side, nothing's been done. The only areas that you've seen improvements, downtown South Bend and Notre Dame. When are the other areas in South Bend going to get that same type of love in their reporting to their community, so they can feel prideful about where they stay?
So, kind of speaking, so you got a lot there. So, speaking about the Notre Dame, so I actually sat down with somebody from Notre Dame just recently, and he kind of gave me the history of what they've tried to start doing. And this started back, I think, in the early 90s, maybe even late 80s.
Oh, okay.
So, Notre Dame was a lot of people were critical of Notre Dame that they didn't put a whole lot into the community, and so they started to try and build trust and kind of show people that they cared. And so the idea of all those houses being bought up was to help improve the area. Number one, like you mentioned, I think the guy I talked to, I don't want to drop his name, but he said about 30% of those houses that are built in there are are houses that are at least they're not their rent, but their price is based on income, and the other 70% of the houses are market value. So you do get a lot of high value properties there, especially. But Notre Dame, I think, has a vested interest in the city doing well. Also, I mean, they want to draw in people, not just students, to come to South Bend and attend the school, but they want to draw people in for Notre Dame games, whether it's football, basketball, whatever it is. And so they started to try and I think that's why they started there on the east side, like you were talking about, buying up those properties. And like you said, I mean, a lot of those people that live there now, they can't afford to come back and live in that community because of the high price of those houses. And so yeah, it does pose a problem. Speaking to your as far as the other neighborhoods that haven't necessarily gotten the improvements that necessary, I think it's a matter of getting affordable housing, whether it's single family homes. Sometimes that's just not the investment for real estate people. It just might not be there in some of those difficult neighborhoods where crime might be high. You know, you invest $180,000 to build a house, but everywhere around it's only going for $60,000.
Yeah.
I mean, you're immediately upside down on your investment. And so trying to move away, I guess, from always doing single family homes. I mean, I like the idea of building townhomes, multifamily housing. We've got so many vacant properties throughout the city. Tiny homes is something that we've been talking about as well with some people. Although some people don't like that idea or the name tiny homes, but I mean, when you talk about affordable housing, I mean, you want to live in a neighborhood that's safe. You want your people who live there want their property values to be maintained, and so we have to do something. And I feel like there's a lot of vacant and abandoned properties in South Bend that have been like that for a while. Maybe we need to look at rezoning them. You know, if they're industrial sites that haven't been used in a long time. Well, some of those sites are pretty darn big. You could probably fit a lot of housing, whether townhomes, apartments. And I mean, the stuff that's happening downtown, don't get me wrong, I mean, it's totally different than what it was when I was growing up. But the reality is that, I mean, I couldn't afford to live down there.
Yeah.
Most people can't afford to live down there. You're talking about a couple $1,000s for an apartment. It's just not realistic. And so even though they have more more housing downtown, it's not necessarily things that people who work a regular 9 to 5, or if you're not making at least, I mean, you'd have to be making $70,000-$80,000 a year to even afford that down there. And so that's what we need to make sure that we're providing, is more affordable housing in areas closer to downtown, because downtown is growing.
Yeah.
But we can't price people out just because.
That's what's happening.
And that's what's happening. Because, I mean, the average person cannot afford to live in those apartments down there. It's definitely, I mean, don't get me wrong, the development's beautiful, and you want to see more people coming in, but you also have to start thinking about, well, what about everybody else in those neighborhoods?
Yeah.
We need more affordable housing. We need to have places that people can still have access to all the different amenities, whether it's on the south side or downtown. But that's got to be a focus, and I think looking at rezoning some of those vacant and abandoned properties, trying to put more than just a single house on some of those empty lots might be a way to kind of draw in more residents, or at least give them more options.
Okay. Yeah, I've always felt like they was trying to, not saying they were purposely trying to push away the lower income people from the area, but it just didn't look right. Like where they once grew up and where they played and everyone was there. Now they can't even think about coming back home. Like I used to be home, now it's not home, and they can't even get there.
Yeah,
it's the downtown area where they there was some housing over there, but those people can't come back over there. I just don't want them to be pushing or making it seem like they're pushing everyone, like, well, you don't make this money, so here's the border. And it just looks like that. If you stand and just look at it, Notre Dame, their area that they have is just fenced off with all the houses and all that. It's just all fenced off, like, wow. And then you go downtown, you can tell where the money stops and where it just starts, like towards the clock, it just starts getting worse. Like
Notre Dame is an important part of the economy here in South Bend. It stimulates with every home game, whenever and the more concerts that they do. I mean, they did Garth Brooks. They did the soccer game recently. The hockey game on New Year's Day. Those things bring in huge amounts of money for the city, and so I think cultivating that relationship and developing it more with Notre Dame is an important aspect, because those are going to bring in jobs, whether you're talking about within the hotel industry, restaurant industry, bars. I mean, those places benefit from those events. And so we need to make sure that, again, that we're balancing it, right? We're still making sure that we recognize the value of Notre Dame, but we also have to make sure that we're trying to kind of include everybody in that process. And so I think connecting Notre Dame with downtown is an important goal to have, because of how much they are, how vitally important they are to our economics. But like you said, we have to make sure that we're including everybody in this, and so making sure that there's affordable housing in those areas around South Bend, downtown. I mean, North Side, East Side, West Side. We've got to make sure that everybody is benefiting from that, and not just one small area.
I totally agree with that. No one should be left out. No one should feel like the city is favoring one side more than the other. We see a question. What other goals does he have for South Bend? What else does he want to improve? So, what are the goals, and what other goals do you have for South Bend, and what else do you want to improve? Is there, if you was to get into office, what would be those timelines? Are we looking at first year, or towards the end of a term? Like, what would
as far as achieving the goals that I want to do? I think everything I want to do is the long game. I mean, I don't think that you can come in and like kick in the door and then within 3 months you're changing things radically. It's gonna take time, and that's why my goals, or at least my campaign, is very simple. It's public safety, it's education, it's infrastructure, and making sure that we've got within the budget that we've got enough money to pay our officers, get more officers, pave our streets, make sure our sewers are running well. Schools are a separate entity. But I want to make sure that I'm supporting the schools. I think we have a vested interest. When you talk about businesses wanting to come in from the outside and invest money into our community, they look at the same things everybody else looks at when they're looking to relocate. Are the streets safe? Are schools good? And so I want to make sure that our schools are supported by the city. Whatever program that they want to get involved with, I want to help. For me personally, my goal in education is to push those trade skills, just because I believe that is going to be the pathway to improving economically the people's lives here in South Bend, but also in drawing in businesses from the outside. Because when you have an educated city, people need to expand their business, or they want to relocate their business. I mean, geographically, we're perfectly placed to be a hub within this region. I mean, we've got access to the Great Lakes. Indiana is within hours of every part of the country, and our airport's expanding. We can, our railways, we need to, I think, expand as much as we can as far as making sure that we provide the transportation necessary. But we've got everything here. We just need to make sure that the people here are also and that they're a commodity that people want to take advantage of, and businesses want to come here and employ. But it's, like I said, everything that I want to do is the long game. I feel like I want to build a very strong foundation for South Bend to stand on, so that I can walk away whenever I leave office. If it's in 4 years, and that's a great thing about our system. If people think I'm doing a terrible job, I mean, you have a referendum every 4 years. They'll let you know. But I mean, for me, I envision 8 years, and I can walk away knowing that I set South Bend up for success in the future.
Two things. You mentioned the schools. I saw in the Tribune where you said you would like to visit the schools a couple of times, just to get the schools. when I saw it, I was like, that's awesome, because I also felt like the council, the city council members that are in each district, they should be at the schools. They should be in the neighborhoods. If they are the representative of that district, you should know who your councilman. You should be able to see your councilman every now and then. Like, I'm not saying be there every day, 24/7, but you should see your councilman in your neighborhood. Your councilman should poke his or her head in the schools to see how things are going, so kids can see they care.
Yeah.
Like, it might not seem that much, but if the neighborhood see that, okay, this the person I voted in, and they walking up down the street talking to different people. And I'm not saying do that in front of a camera, because when you do that, it doesn't look good. You're doing it for the wrong reason. But do it on a random day and be in your district. I've always felt like councilmen, and they should be doing that.
I mean, to defend them, councilmen, that's not their full-time gig.
Right.
All those guys have jobs, usually 9 to 5 or something that they're working in addition. But I mean, for the mayor, somebody who's elected position, that's my job. You know, that'd be my job, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I want at least for the kids, I want them to know that I'm all in for them. That I want to see them succeed, because I think their success is future generations' success. It's success here for everybody. And I mean, I'm a teacher, so I mean, I like going into schools. I mean, that's something that I'm passionate about. My dad was a teacher. My brother still is a teacher at Mishawaka. So I feel like it's important for the city to show the future that we care, you know. Right. Just because you're not voters, just because you're not of voting age, doesn't mean that I'm not thinking about what you're going to be contributing to the city once you are. Because I think we need to make sure that these kids know, like I said earlier, that they got options. Like, college is great, but college isn't for everybody.
Right.
And I think some people recognize it sooner than others, and kind of making sure that they know that those options are out there. That's something that I want to make sure that I'm telling them about. I want to see that building trades program in South Bend be big. I mean, they got a really good one, don't get me wrong. I think the last house they built last year sold for upwards of over $300,000. Wow. So they do a good job over there with that program. I just want to see it bigger. That's why I think going into schools, letting them know about these options early on, 5th grade, 6th grade, is a way for them to kind of be thinking about that. And not be thinking, you know, at their sophomore year, maybe I should get into the building trades. I want them to going into their high school, you know, as a freshman, like, I want to do building trades. And,
right.
And if there's a way to develop, and I know that the standards and the state-wise, they change kind of, not a lot, but they do change. But making sure, I mean, if we can find a way for kids to get a year or two of that apprenticeship knocked out, whether it's classroom stuff, on-the-site stuff, where they're graduating as a senior at 18 and they're already maybe 2 years into that program. I mean, coming out making $20 an hour at 18, that's a pretty good deal. Yeah. So, I mean, I think everybody'd like to think they're going to find a $20-$25 an hour job, you know, coming out of high school, but you don't have any skills, you don't have any kind of training behind you, and so that's why I think that those trade skills are just so important and critical. As a viable option, and the military as well, to kind of get them in the idea that they don't necessarily have to be a college student right away. I mean, I go back to college. I mean, start your own business, but have something that you can always fall back on. Right. Always have that skill that you can fall back on in case things don't work out.
Right. Well, let me clear what I was saying. Not every day, but at least once a month. Your district should see your face. If you're campaigning and you spend all that time campaigning, that your district should see your face at least one time to show that I care about my district. I care about the schools in my district.
It feels good when you feel like your leaders know you and that your leaders care about you.
Exactly. You don't feel like, I voted this person in and then that's it. Yeah. That's it. So. Just to be clear on what I was saying, and you were saying you're going to play the long game. Now, we've seen where the FBI did the raid with all the corruption that's going on. Um, are you not? I'm not. Assuming that you're gonna clean house.
Now, I mean, you have to start with leadership, and I mean, leadership sets the tone, and so whether or not I go in there and clean house, that's something that I'm gonna have to look at when I get there. But we have to know that the process, I mean, especially when you're talking about anything that is government related, it's got to be fair. It's got to be equitable. Everyone has to have a fair shake. And making sure, even though the Housing Authority is a federally funded program, they are operating within the city. And so I would like to make sure that these programs that are operating, whether it's working hand in hand with HUD and making sure that place is operating as it should. I want to make sure, because those are our most vulnerable population. I mean, those are the people that they need government housing, and if people are being denied that because there's back deals going on, or people are getting a sweetheart deal, or if they don't even qualify for it because they make so much money yet they're still in government housing, that's a corrupt process. And I feel like the mayor in this case should have some responsibility in making sure that those things are operating as they should be. Again, with a federal program, it's a little bit different, but I think there are steps that can be taken to make sure that operations, like with the Housing Authority in particular, I think there's steps that can be taken to make sure that it's run the right way. Because I mean, it's in our city. I mean, these are our residents. These are our citizens. I think they rely on the government in this case for that housing, but they also should rely on the government to make sure that they're being treated equally. And so, I mean, I think the fact that how that went down, again, it's not the mayor's. It's not 100% on the mayor's shoulder. The mayor's not overseeing that on a day-to-day basis. But maybe it's something that you should check in a little bit more on from time to time. I mean, there were reports that there were corruption, and he cleaned house and put all new board members on there, and some of the same problems are still persisting. So I think just appointing new leaders and then saying I'm done is not necessarily the right way. I mean, I feel like with government, you should be providing some basic things, making sure people are safe, and that includes making sure that process in that case is being run the right way, making sure that you've got good schools, good education system, supporting that in any way possible, and making sure that your infrastructure is running tip-top. Those are you take care of those three things, economic growth is going to come. People are going to want to come to your city because they see those basic foundational elements are run, and they're run well. And so that's what I want to make sure that we do. Whether or not, if I win and then as soon as I'm done, South Bend goes back to a Democratic mayor, that could happen, absolutely. But I'm hoping that the process that we establish and the things that we try and do while I'm in charge is something that's going to be carried on as we move forward.
I like it. Building a solid foundation and going from there. I like that. So, just to clear that up with the corruption thing, because I was thinking it was just a total wiping clean of the slate. There won't be a wiping clean of the slate. There's a process to everything, and my idea was an extreme idea, but there's a process to everything. We have to see that process through. You have to find the corruption and get it out of there. So there's a process to everything and anything that we do in government. So I think you made some very good points. I'm liking what you're putting out there. I hope you felt like you was able to get what you needed to get out there to the people. I wanted to do this interview because I felt like when different people go on to news stations or radio stations, it's like a rush thing. They have to hurry up, chop, get it done, and boom. Or you do an article and different things are pulled out of the article as we seen today. So I hope that I presented a platform for you to say how you felt.
No, absolutely. I felt it was a very fair discussion, and yeah, you gave me an opportunity to put my message out there. So I think
no problem. Again, people, I'm not telling you to vote for Mr. Sean Haas. I wanted to present you someone and let you hear from that person about how they feel, how the city is being ran, and what they want to do. We're not doing the bashing or the any of that. We're just presenting facts and what Sean Haas wants to do as mayor. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Before we get out of here, Mr. Sean Haas, is there anything you would like to say to the people?
Make sure you show up and vote. I think that's the most important thing. Whether you decide to vote for me or you decide not to, I think civic engagement is the most important thing that we can do. If we don't vote, we really shouldn't even have much of an opinion on what happens within the government because you didn't take the time to do it. So get out and vote. I think that's the most important thing.
Get out and vote November
5th.
November 5th. Get out and vote. Get out and vote. If you want to see change, get out and vote. That will bring the episode to a close. Again, people, I want to say thank you for watching that episode with me and Alex England. 1,000, that means a lot to me. Keep running those numbers up. Next September 15th, we're going to have Mark Skoll Jr. We're going to be talking about Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Do you like football?
I do like football.
He likes football. How do you game? I was about to say, how do you predict Notre Dame season ends this year?
Well, I mean, I'd like to see Notre Dame in the BCS again. I think they got a tough road. They got some pretty tough games this year. It's gonna be hard, but I got faith in the Irish. I've always I grew up not far from campus, so we'd be out playing football on Saturday afternoons, and you could hear the roar of the crowd. It was always a good thing, I think, to be so close to such a great university. So I wish them luck.
It's gonna be a tough season, but I got them doing fairly well if it's all on N-Book. I feel like if N-Book can carry the team, then he'll carry them to an undefeated season. If it's on him, I feel like the offense is going to have to be in place. The defense, I feel, is kind of weak this year, but N-Book, I like him as a quarterback for Notre Dame.
I think the defense might surprise some people this year.
Yeah?
I think
I heard that a couple of times.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's just all about getting that experience, getting out there and playing. So hopefully they get it.
If the defense doesn't show up, I feel like Notre Dame has the offense. They have the quarterback to put the crazy numbers up. I'm pretty sure the fans would not mind seeing an air show in South Bend every Saturday. I'm sure they would not mind seeing crazy numbers. So don't miss that episode with Mark Skoll, November 15th. That's the Sunday following Notre Dame's home game. So stay tuned on this page, the See Through It podcast. More interviews, more content. Thank you for your support. And again, I will see you guys later. Peace.